Welcome back. Now we're going to move into the US because there's another turmoil, surprise, surprise, yet again. Today we're diving into a critical issue that some would say threatens the foundation of our democracy, but is something that has not been unknown to occur and actually has been occurring, and that is gerrymandering. With the upcoming 2026 elections, and midway from the last census, there is now shouts that Trump wants a new census to be done midterm. And it's all about reshaping the political districts, understanding how lines are drawn and who benefits and who is more important than ever. So President Trump recently issued an executive order directing the Census Bureau to exclude undocumented immigrants from the population totals used for congressional redistricting and also to conduct a new census. Now, it is important to remember that census are only done every 10 years. There was one done in 2020, which resulted in many redistricting to include in New York, which wiped out 3 Republican seats, Massachusetts, which has no Republican seats, although they're threatening now to redistrict. And okay, don't know how you could be more gerrymandered than that, or even Illinois, but we'll get to that. So as Newsweek reports, this is a major shift. The census has traditionally counted everyone living in the U.S., regardless of legal status, to determine how many congressional seats each state gets. But excluding undocumented immigrants means states that were largely undocumented with large undocumented populations like California, Texas, New York could lose political representation in Congress. There's also the fact that you had a mass exodus of blue states that were locked down for 2+ years because of COVID that went to Florida, the likes of Texas that went to southern states. So this could potentially shift power away from Democratic leaning states. And now that's why you're hearing all this uproar. And you're starting to hear from governors that this is war. I didn't realize we were in a war, people. Did you? Yes, the Democrats are saying this is a war because apparently it's a war. It's always been they hate Trump, which didn't win them anything in the 2024 elections, but fight fire with fire. I think that's why we are in this now, because fire is being fought with fire. But now the red states are kind of doing it, or one. Critics are saying that the order politicizes the census and may undercount communities, leading to less funding and representation. Because remember, the census is about how to determine the funding, what are the needs of that area, but also provide better demographic information such as population, race, ethnicity, poverty, things of that nature. But either way, the decision adds complexity and controversy to an already contentious redistricting battle. See, it's all about the political power shifts and what the redistricting maps impact. So after 2020, I think every state went through a redistricting path. Some gerrymander more than others. Some are supposed to be under a neutral committee. Like actually in California, it's constitutional that a nonpartisan neutral committee will determine the congressional districting mapping and lining pursuant to the census. Florida attempted to do it and it was thrown out, going back to the pre-COVID, pre-census 2020 census years. In fact, DeSantis claimed that probably robbed us of 2 additional congressional seats. But according to the BBC, the 2020 census already shows significant population shifts, many people moving from traditional Democratic strongholds in the Northeast and California to Republican-leaning states like Florida, Texas, Arizona. The decision to exclude undocumented immigrants will magnify these effects as states with large immigrant populations may lose seats or see diminished political power. That will affect Florida as well. We do have a large migrant base, especially for the farming and hospitality. This has major implications not only for the balance of power in the House, but also for policy priorities on immigration, healthcare, and more. And it is a reminder that how we count people matters. far beyond the numbers themselves. And it's not just politics. Again, this is about resources, how dollars, budgeting. It goes, I mean, I remember writing grants. I always went to the demographic information. It provides a true or close enough true window into what the areas are, the population of every area is about. But the controversy doesn't end with counting. As the Wall Street editorial makes clear, Democratic-led states often loudly condemn Republican efforts to influence elections, yet engage in aggressive gerrymandering themselves. Look to Illinois. For those 20 Democratic, oh yeah, if you haven't heard, 20 Democrats from Texas, boy, those state legislatures, they're out on the run again. They did this 2 years ago. Didn't stop from what happening, but I guess we can say they're on the run every 2 years. But where do they flee to? To prevent the vote on the new redistricting maps in the state legislature of Texas, they run to the most gerrymandered, the most extreme example of corrupt districting, Illinois. Because if you look at the map, the Congressional, you have only 3 Republican districts, and they are large geographical areas. But then you have like a scorpion tail here, and this one little area that's broken up in 15 little like puzzle pieces. New York, in fact, took away 3 Republican seats just in 2023 based on their new congressional gerrymandered districting. Massachusetts wiped out all Republican seats. And here's something to really look at, because what Trump is saying is that the census needs to be taken again because it should mirror what we found in the presidential elections. Okay, so Massachusetts, there are 0 Republican seats. Everything is blue there. They have redistricted just 2 years ago in 2023, though they're threatening it's war. Remember what? Fight fire with fire, that the governor of Massachusetts says, well, we're going to go ahead and do a midterm redistricting. For what? You already redistrict the heck out of the fact that you marginalized any Republicans. There is less than 18% representatives on the state legislature that are Republican, when in fact, during the presidential elections, Trump received I think he received 36 to 38% of the vote. New York, they redistricted back in 2023. They did it to the point that they removed 3 seats from Republicans, and they shifted it to solid blue. They fixed it in a way that Republicans lost seats, and it's now a flip blue because they catered and made sure it was mostly registered Democrats in a certain area. And this is not the first year this is happening. This has been happening for decades. For decades. And of all the hypocrites, I mean, the biggest hypocrite, and when you have even left-leaning comedians and talk show hosts making fun of this, everybody should stand up and look. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker oversees district maps drawn to heavily favored Democrats, entrenching their control even as voter preferences evolve. So this is part of the broader Democratic delusion, as described in the National Review. Democratic leaders claim to be champions of fair elections, but rely on manipulating district lines to maintain political power, often at the expense of competition and voter choice. This hypocrisy undermines trust in the political system, and it is hypocrisy. Gerrymandering isn't about fair representation. It's about power preservation. And we Americans do deserve better. We deserve transparency. We deserve impartiality. We deserve nonpartisan districting that reflects the will of the people. But also, how about this? Make it fair. There shouldn't be a geographical area that's 1/3 of the state of Illinois and saying that's one legislative congressional representative seat, and then in a very little sliver, like a fault line in this state, there's 5 Democratic seats. You can't continue to do this. But don't call and cry wolf and say this is anti-democratic and we had to fight fire with fire, and this is an insurrection, what Texas is doing and what Trump is doing, and we're at war with the Republicans. What the hell happened to this country? What happened to our freaking political leaders when they've been doing this? Look in the damn mirror, cry hypocrite. Yes, it's a power grab. Yes, Trump is doing everything he can to ensure and sending out JD Vance or Vice President Vance and such to ensure that they were trying to go to Indiana saying we need to create more seats. Yes, they're trying to maintain power for the Republicans. But one thing's for sure, after 2023, if you look at the congressional districting lines, look at what's happening in the state legislatures of all the states and see how it's representative. Because here's the irony. In Texas, it's about balanced to what happened in the 2024 presidential elections. They're not too far off on representing what the actual electorate is, the registrations are of that electorate. The only ones that are so far out in left wing, Illinois. And then you have Governor Newsom, who basically says, well, I'm governor and to hell with the constitutional requirement. I'm going to waive that constitutional requirement and we're going to do this. For what? You just redistrict your lines 2 years ago and took away more Republican seats and added more Democratic seats. You should be more worried about the fact that if there's a new census, it will show that millions of people left California. And as far as the representation belongs, you're actually going to lose seats because you had attrition. Gerrymandering and census controversies reveal how political power is often manipulated. Behind the scenes, threatening fair representation and voter trust. But this fight for power isn't just at the state or congressional level. Coming up next, we'll shift focus to the mayoral elections shaping our cities and the surprising ways President Trump is influencing fundraising and grassroots politics, even at the local level. Stay tuned.